Good evening, Madam President. I would try to be brief in my comments, but I rise today because I've been summoned because of the blood of the martyrs that I believe are screaming from the ground, "Let my people vote." The martyrs upon whose shoulders I stand on today: Martin Luther King Jr., Ella Baker, Fannie Lou Hamer, and the late Congressman John Lewis. I believe I'm the only person in this chamber that can probably speak with some level of specificity and sophistication regarding my dear mentor, my friend, a moral tiger, a spiritual giant, a person with whom I knew intimately and closely, the late Congressman John Lewis. I interned for him, and I also interviewed on Fox News for those of you who tuned in to Fox News. What I want to say tonight is Congressman Lewis was not just a champion for voting rights, but he also stood up fundamentally so that each and every person would have an opportunity to engage in our democratic process. And he died on his dying bed wanting to continue his legacy of voting rights in this country. In the 1960s, he stood alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and he often talked to me about how when he walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Alabama, he was met with evil forces from police officers and he had a cracked skull. He continued to go to Congress, and in 1987, when he was first elected, that was one of the first things that he talked about, was ensuring that people who look like me had an opportunity to engage and to vote and to make a difference in our society and in our world. I'm holding back tears because I know one of the last things that he said to me is that, Herron, every community needs an angelic troublemaker. And in 2020, I thought about his words, and I said one of the things that I'm going to do is run for public office, because I believe that politics is the process by which we choose our elected officials and hold them accountable to the constituents that they represent. But it would be lost on me if I did not continue John Lewis's legacy in fighting to secure voting rights and to make the voting and create better voting access for people across the state of Connecticut. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said that an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Some of us sit around in this room and in this circle and we talk about wanting a more fair and equitable society and where people have an opportunity to vote. But we know that voter disenfranchisement is a real thing across this country. And if it can happen in Alabama, and it can happen in Georgia, and it can happen in Tennessee, sooner or later it can happen here in the state of Connecticut. And if we truly believe what we say, then we will vote on initiatives that help us to be more inclusive. You know, someone made a comment earlier tonight and said that, you know, people do not vote because of race. And I reject that notion, because we would not need to have civil rights or voting rights legislation if people were all created equally and we had a sufficiently representative democracy. I think that's what we're fighting for, more inclusion. America is not a melting pot, but a salad bowl, and each of us have our own special ingredients by which we're able to contribute to that. But in order for us to get to this notion of a more perfect union, we need to ensure that all people, regardless of what you look like, where you come from, your background, your native tongue, have an opportunity to go out and vote and have those voting rights protected. And one of the reasons that we keep having this kind of debate, and I'm not afraid to say it, I think that as a nation we've made a lot of progress, but we have been weak-willed in our ability to have an open and honest conversation around the issue of race. And for those of us who are recipients of such discrimination, are better positioned to speak directly to the experiences of voter disenfranchisement. And oftentimes that's not the case. The narrative is told from the other side. And my heart is deeply grieved tonight because this is a meaningful and strong piece of legislation that I think is going to benefit all of our towns, all of our cities, every demographic that make up the state of Connecticut. And I would really urge my colleagues to vote for this piece of legislation. And I'll leave you all with this. 2 weeks before Congressman John Lewis passed away, he said, "Herron, when you see something that is not right, that is not just or unfair, you have a moral obligation to speak up and to stand on the side of justice." And the last thing he said was, continue to fight for civil rights, continue to fight for voting rights. And I'm going to continue to fight indefatigably to ensure that his legacy lives on and to ensure that the perfect union that he imagined, that America can live into its promise by ensuring that all people are included in the democratic process and no one is disenfranchised. So thank you for this opportunity.